I never thought a quiet Tuesday morning would be the moment I snapped. I was in the kitchen making coffee, wearing an old hoodie and pajama pants, hair tied up in a messy bun, nothing fancy, just me being me. We were staying at my mother-in-law's place for a few weeks while our apartment was being renovated. It was supposed to be temporary. But nothing feels temporary when the judgment never takes a break. She walked in with that usual clack of her heels, the scent of her overpowering floral perfume invading the space like a warning. Without even a good morning, she glanced at the kitchen counter and said, "Are you going to contribute anything today? Or just scroll through your little hobby?" I looked up from my laptop, where I had just finalized a deal with a client that would bring in 6 figures over the next 3 months. But she didn't see that. She never asked. To her, if it didn't come with a degree or an office, it didn't count. "You know," she said, sipping her imported tea with an air of superiority, "back in my day, women actually did something useful. Not just sat around pretending to work on the computer." I bit my tongue. I had heard it all before. Every time she looked at me, it was with the same cold eyes that judged and dismissed. I was just the high school graduate, the woman her son married on a whim, the one she never thought was good enough. It didn't matter that I had grown up poor and started working at 16. Didn't matter that I had taught myself everything from scratch: web design, e-commerce, digital marketing, branding. Didn't matter that I ran a business with 6 employees across 2 continents. To her, I was still just uneducated. But today, something shifted. I didn't feel anger like I usually did. I felt clarity and peace. Like the moment before you walk away from something forever. So when she looked at me and said, "Honestly, I don't know why my son even married you. You're uneducated, jobless, and frankly embarrassing. Just leave. Go back to wherever you came from," I stood still for a moment. She didn't even blink. I felt the weight of years sitting on my chest every time I had swallowed her insults, every time I smiled to keep the peace, every time I tried to be good enough for a family that only wanted a trophy. I turned my laptop around, showed her the pending PayPal transaction. It was $1.2 million. "That's what I made last quarter," I said softly. She blinked, stared, speechless for once. But I didn't wait for a response. I simply stood up, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Okay, I'll leave." Then I walked upstairs. I packed my bags in silence. My husband came home that night to an empty closet and a note. "Don't come looking for me until you learn how to be a husband, not just a son." I booked a private flight to Hawaii that same day. I had bought the vacation home a year earlier, a hidden sanctuary on the edge of a cliff with a view of the sea that reminded me life could still be beautiful. And for the first time in years, I took a breath that felt free. I spent the first week sleeping, the second week swimming in the ocean every morning before the sun got too hot. I stopped checking emails, stopped looking at social media, stopped caring what they thought of me. In that silence, I healed. But I didn't forget. Because I knew one thing deep in my heart: this wasn't just about me. It was about every woman who had ever been told she wasn't enough. And I was going to rise, not in anger, but in purpose. Great. Let's continue this full-length, emotionally rich revenge story. Here's part 2, the turning point, continuing directly from where we left off. In my 3rd week in Hawaii, something shifted. It wasn't just about healing anymore. It was about rising. I woke up one morning with this fire in my chest, the kind that tells you you're not meant to stay silent anymore. I opened my laptop and reopened my business dashboard for the first time since I left. Revenue was still flowing in. My team had kept things running like clockwork. They had no idea I had been breaking apart emotionally in the background. They just kept delivering. I scheduled a call with my assistant Tanya and asked her how things had been. "Quiet," she said, "but smooth. We got 2 partnership offers from international brands, one from Europe and one from South Korea. Oh, and Forbes emailed again." I blinked. "Again? They want to do a profile on you, like a big one. Founders who broke the mold." I let out a soft laugh. "I think it's time," I said. Over the next few days, I rebranded everything: my website, my products, my voice. I leaned into my story, my truth. No sugarcoating. No pretending to be someone I wasn't. I launched a new product line focused on financial independence for women. A course. A mentoring platform. A podcast. It exploded. Within a month, the first podcast episode had hit 500,000 downloads. Messages poured in. I never thought someone like me could succeed until I saw you. I left an abusive marriage today. Thank you for reminding me I'm not worthless. This episode saved my life. I cried a lot that month. Not from sadness. From release. From knowing that the very thing used against me, my lack of a college degree, my unconventional path, had become the reason I was changing lives. But I wasn't done yet, because they still didn't know. Not my ex. Not his mother. Not the family that looked down on me for so long. And I had no intention of telling them. I wanted them to find it. I wanted them to feel the same shock I had felt standing in her kitchen that day when someone you thought was powerless shows you they were holding the sword the whole time. 3 months later, I got an invitation. It was for a family event. A renewal ceremony for my in-laws' 35th anniversary, sent by my sister-in-law, who apparently hadn't gotten the memo that I'd vanished. I almost deleted it. Almost. But then I thought, no, let's go. Not for them. For me. To walk in and not as the woman they tried to belittle, but as the woman they could never control. So I flew back. I didn't call anyone. Didn't warn them. I showed up in a fitted white pantsuit, hair perfectly styled, heels clicking against the floor of that grand old family house like thunder. The same house where I was once told I wasn't good enough. Their faces were priceless. Gasps. Stares. Whispers. My ex looked like he had seen a ghost, and maybe he had. The ghost of the woman who used to beg for his approval. Now untouchable. His mother? She looked me up and down and blinked like her brain needed a moment to register. "Oh, you came," she finally said, her voice small. I smiled. "Yes, I wanted to see you all again. It's been enlightening." They asked questions, where I'd been, what I'd been doing. I answered none of them directly, just polite, distant smiles, until the projector turned on in the backyard. One of the cousins had put together a video montage for the anniversary. Halfway through the presentation, there was a pause in the slideshow. And then, by fate or divine humor, a Forbes video auto played on the connected YouTube account. It was my feature. My face on a giant screen. My story. My success. I didn't plan it. But God, it couldn't have been more perfect. The room fell into stunned silence, except for one voice barely above a whisper. She's famous? I didn't move. Didn't explain. Just turned to my ex and said, "You never asked me what I did. Maybe you should have." Then I walked out. Didn't wait for applause. Didn't look back. I flew back to Hawaii the next morning. My assistant had set up a celebration for me at the villa, not for the Forbes thing, not for the money, but because that morning marked exactly 1 year since I had left that house and reclaimed my voice. We lit lanterns on the beach, each one with a word I had been told that tried to break me: uneducated, worthless, embarrassing. One by one, we released them into the sky. Watched them rise, watched them vanish, watched them burn. I stayed on that beach long after everyone left. The moonlight shimmered on the waves, and the warm breeze wrapped around me like an embrace from the universe. It was quiet, and for the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like home. I sat there and thought back to everything I had endured, everything I had buried so deep inside just to survive in a family that never saw me as their own. I remembered the nights I stayed up learning how to build websites from scratch because I couldn't afford to take courses. I remembered the first time I sold something online, a handmade digital planner for $3.99, and how I danced around the room like I'd won the lottery. I remember crying on the bathroom floor when my first business failed and I had $84 left in my bank account, and how I got up the next morning and tried again, I remembered all the birthdays I spent alone while my husband went golfing with his buddies. All the dinners I cooked, the holidays I planned, the effort I poured into that family, only to be dismissed with one phrase, "You're not one of us." And yet, here I was. Not just one of them. Better. Not out of pride, but out of perseverance. The next day, I got a call from my ex. I let her ring. Twice. Then, on the third try, I picked up. There was a long silence on the other end. Then I heard his breath. "Ellie," he started, voice low. "Don't," I said softly. I saw the video, the Forbes thing, and I realized how wrong we were. I was about you. I said nothing. "I thought you were playing around online. I didn't know you were building all that." His voice cracked. "We lost everything," he said. "After you pulled the funding, Mom tried to fix it, but things spiraled. And now, I'm sorry." He paused like he expected me to rush in and soothe him, like I used to, but I didn't. "Do you want forgiveness?" I asked. There was hesitation. I want a second chance." I took a long breath, stared out at the turquoise sea stretching endlessly before me. Then I spoke with the calm that only truth can bring. "You have your chance," I said. "When I stood beside you, when I begged for support, when I was dismissed over and over, you were silent. Your silence was your answer." "I was scared," he whispered. "So was I said. "But I still showed up." He was quiet again. "Tell your mother," I added, "that I'm not angry. I don't hate her. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore." Click. I hung up. And this time, there were no tears. Weeks passed. Life moved on. The business grew even bigger than I could have imagined. A major tech firm reached out for a partnership deal. I started a private mentorship group for women who were in the same position I had once been mocked, dismissed, forgotten. One night, during a group coaching session, one of my students, her name was Zara, asked me something that caught me off guard. "How did you not let the bitterness eat you alive?" she asked. I still feel it. Every time I think about the people who laughed at me, I burn. The screen was filled with faces nodding in agreement. I paused for a long moment. Then I said, "Because bitterness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I chose not to carry it. I chose to let my success speak." "But doesn't it hurt?" someone else asked. "Of course," I said. "But healing isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about refusing to let it control your story." That night, I walked the beach again, and I prayed. Not a fancy prayer, just gratitude. For every tear that led me here, for every door that closed, forcing me to build my own, for the woman I became. 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, shaky handwriting, from her, my mother-in-law, the woman who once looked me in the face and said I was an embarrassment. It was a long letter, one that started with excuses and ended with desperation. She wrote that the family business had filed for bankruptcy, that her reputation in their social circles had crumbled, that my ex had taken a job managing a warehouse in another city, that she was alone, tired, and for the first time in her life, unsure of everything she thought she knew. She asked for forgiveness. She asked to talk. She said she missed me. I read the letter 3 times. Then I wrote one back. "Dear Margaret, I hope you're well. Thank you for your letter. I appreciate your words. But I have built a life rooted in peace, and I intend to protect it. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. I forgive you, but I am not coming back. I wish you healing. Ellie." I sealed the letter and sent it. No return address. Because some chapters don't need revisiting. Some stories deserve to end, quietly, powerfully, and without regret. Today, I sit on the terrace of my Italian villa. There's a vineyard down the hill, and the sun is setting like liquid gold across the sky. My dogs run in the field below. Laughter from my team echoes through the house. My life is no longer small. It's no longer defined by what they thought of me. It's defined by what I chose to build after they tried to break me. If you're reading this and someone has tried to put you in a box, if someone told you you're not enough because of your background, your education, your path, let me say this clearly. You do not need their permission to be great. You do not need validation from those who only know how to criticize. Your quiet rise is louder than their noise. And when you finally stand tall, don't do it to prove them wrong. Do it to prove yourself right. Because you always knew there was more inside you. And now the world gets to see it too. So tell me, have you ever been told you weren't enough? And how did you rise anyway?